All right, we're going to be reviewing today the Hobitat 6 from REI. Brand new tent. We've never set it up, so me and Ammon, he's behind the camera. We are going to set this thing up and see how it works. I have gotten the, I never say the word right, vestibule for this tent. There's two different options. One is just a extended covering, and we got the REI Garage, which is another 56 square feet. We'll show you. I put it all in this one bag, but we've never set this up yet. So I'll show you kind of an unveiling or unboxing of it, if you will. So what we have here, this is the footprint that we bought with the tent so that we didn't have to try and use the tarp underneath there. Footprints are really valuable on these tents because they're actually a little smaller than the tent. Nothing sticks outside of it, so in a rainstorm you don't get water coming underneath your tent and getting your bags wet. So I always recommend buying the actual footprint. In here we have the stakes for the tent, or not the stakes, but the poles for the tent, plus the poles for this, which is the added vestibule that we purchased with this tent. Again, I just put them all together to see if they'd fit in that bag, and as you can see, all of these extra things that we purchased fit inside the bag that came with their tent. We have the fly, that's for the actual tent, and then we have the actual Hobitat tent right here. But one of the advantages you'll see when we get this tent up is this tent has almost vertical walls, so you have all the space in your tent to use versus some of the other ones that are more dome shaped and cut off a lot of the side areas of the tent to use. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm Kevin, this is Ammon, and we're going to start out with the footprint and the poles. Again, we'll kind of figure this out as we go. We've never done this, but we've set up a number of tents in our lifetime. Ammon has done a lot of backpacking and camping. It is no stranger to tents. These, if you want to take these out, Ammon, these silver poles are the ones for the tent. These bright orange ones are the ones that they have set aside for the vestibule. It's kind of nice because as you get their add-ons, you don't have to get confused as to which poles went with which ones. And then there's this heavy metal poles that go across the center of this tent. Again, this is meant more for car camping, things like that. You're not going to go backpacking with this particular tent. And so we'll see how this works. Now you can see right here, one thing that REI has done that I like is the poles are bent. A lot of these tents get set up and then the poles bend after they're set up because they can't handle the stress that happens when the tent is set up. So REI has already put the bend in the poles for it. Which I think is, I just really like a lot of the REI stuff. It's just really well thought out. I don't know if you can see this, but they're always color coordinated. So when you put the tent up, you just simply match the colors up, and it's pretty simple. Slide these poles right through these little nylon seams. Am, if you want to go ahead and slide the poles to that other one. They're very short, so it's not a big deal. It goes right through that. See that center rib there? Those are very taut poles. It's first thought we had it kind of wrong because the poles were really bowed out, but this is how the tent sets up, and you can see the walls in this tent are really more vertical. door rolls up and fits into a pocket right up in the top of the tent. I didn't put it in there very nicely, but sits up in there, and you can see the back door is open back there, and you have complete open access. All right, well, apparently our camera shut off while we were doing this and we didn't know it. So the last you saw was the tent sitting here, and then we set the vestibule up. It actually, vestibule up, it went really well. You just zip it on to the tent. We'll show you when we take it down. This has to be staked out. It's not freestanding like the tent is. All you have is this one pole. Get it put in. There's 4 stakes, the 2 on the end down here and 2 at the end of the pole. And you've got this entire garage out here to store your gear, to sit under. The door has a couple of features. One, you can roll this door up and have it just partially open like this. Maybe it's a little bit of a windy day, you want some breeze, but you don't really just want it wide open. So you've got this, and it actually has a loop here to hold this in this position right here. You can also take the second zipper right here, and you can roll this door up halfway or even all the way to the top right here. The other thing that you can do, it's designed to do this, is with these grommets in the bottom, a little breezy today, you can actually flap this out and put some hiking poles or trekking poles underneath this, and actually have a canopy underneath this, which is really quite nice. All right, so as we come to the tent here, you see that you've got quite a roomy and spacious vestibule here. It's got, again, plenty of place to put all your gear. You can get in here, and I'm 6 foot tall, and I have to bend over slightly as I stand in here. But as we look at the tent is quite huge. We get into here, and I can stand up. I'm not touching the ceiling. Hammond, do you want to take the camera and you can film? So Hammond's filming. I'm 6 foot, 6.5, 6'1", depending on who's measuring me. Gives you an idea of my ball cap. Nothing's touching the top of this tent. So I'm standing up. The walls in this tent come up vertically, so really you're almost completely standing up almost anywhere you want to be in the tent. Plenty of room anywhere you go in this tent. Got my little buddy here, Charlie, hanging out. In the tent, there's pockets in each one of the corners to keep your gear in. There's some little ties and stays up here that you can put in a hammock up above to store your stuff in your hammock loft. Here I've got to bend over a little bit for the garage here, but if you're sitting down in a chair, you want to put your gear in here, you got a rainstorm afternoon, put your sides of your tent out. If it's not really bad weather, and get that extra shade, you really can put 5-6 people underneath this thing and not have to carry a second easy up or a canopy with you. So and go ahead and give them a 360 in there of the tent. The screen's out the top. Alright, we're going to go ahead and put on the rain fly for the tent. Here and hold this out. I wish this fly would come down a little bit more. This is my only thing I really don't love about this particular tents. I've seen them. Again, in really heavy rain, you're going to get splash effect. It's going to come up on the side of this tent, and potentially if something's up against that, you can get water passing through. leak. And again, this is more of a, I'd say, your mild weather tent. They do have the King Dome, which is the new one, even beyond this one. And then there's also, I'm trying to think what it is, I think it's Base Camp is what it's called. The Base Camp tent is more of a dome with a fly that comes down even further, which is really for your super heavy weather. If you can be out in the snow, maybe some family camping where hunting even, where it's maybe going to be really foul weather. This probably wouldn't be the tent of choice. You'd go with the Base Camp versus the Hobitat. So that's our review. We'll show you taking the vestibule down. All right, we're having Arizona's famous dust storms here. We've had gusts probably up in the 30-40 mile an hour range all day today. It's probably 2:30 in the afternoon, and the tent has been up since last night. Again, there's only the 4 stakes down here in the front and 2 stakes in the back holding this tent. No guidelines. It's not really blowing that hard right now with the fences and the walls around here, but there's gusts that have come down in the yard here and rattled the tent pretty good. The fact that it's been blowing like this since early this morning, here it is late afternoon, and the tent really hasn't shifted positions at all, really shows how well this tent can handle really some pretty good weather. If it was going to get a lot windier than this and we staked it out with some of the supporting guide wires, I think this tent would last you through pretty much just about anything you need to go through, probably except for maybe a gale force wind hurricane or something, but who's going camping in those? Well, we're back. We're going to take it down. It's the next day. It's been windy all day, probably 20 to 30 mile an hour gusts of winds throughout the day. Tent's still standing, and there's just the 4 stakes in the front and the 2 in the back. No guidelines. Tent has performed pretty darn well. So we're going to see how long it takes us now to take it all back down, see if we can fit it back into the sack that it goes into. Ready? Yep. Mark, set. Alright, well, there we are. That is the tent that came in the original bag. That is the REI Garage. So we have the poles for both tents in the original bag that came for just this tent. As well, we have the footprint, the fly, the tent, and the garage all in this bag. Well, that's the Hobitat 6 from REI, reviewed by Everything Outdoors AZ. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. We're going to do many more, so subscribe to our channel. Again, click like on this video if it was helpful. You found useful information from this. You want to know your equipment. You want to know what you're buying before you spend and waste money on equipment that you don't really want. Again, we hope this is helpful to you, and I look forward to talking to you next time.